Welcome back, everybody. Today I am going to be digging into the collection for a bit of a survey of one of reggae music of the 1970s, less talked about, more under the radar names, music producer whose fairly compact body of work, always done on a shoestring budget, the core of it available on just 2 LPs, only one of which ever appeared at the time he was active, is nonetheless highly regarded by aficionados of reggae music. I'm talking about the man called Jimmy Radway and his For Me Time label, a reggae producer you should know. Stay tuned. Jimmy Radway was born as Ivan Lloyd Radway on January 5th, 1947. His father was a school teacher, and he would grow up in the impoverished Jonestown neighborhood of Kingston, would be typically known as Lloyd Radway. Even on his later records, it's not uncommon to see him credited as L. Radway, either as producer or arranger, but along the way, he would pick up the nickname Jimmy, that he would be more typically known as. As a child, he sang in a Salvation Army church choir, and it was at the age of 10 in 1957 that his life would take a fateful turn as he faced one of the first major hurdles and hardships of his life. He took part in a Sunday school outing by train to Montego Bay. It was a very crowded train with approximately 1,600 people on board. However, on the return trip, reportedly due to a combination of poor track maintenance and brake mechanical failure, the train derailed and hurtled over an embankment near Kendal, Manchester, in the countryside of Jamaica. Close to 200 people lost their lives in Jamaica's worst ever train disaster that would later be remembered as the Kendal crash, often referenced in reggae songs later on, perhaps most notably by Lone Ranger in the late 70s as Kendal Crash. And Jimmy was among the injured, close to 700 people injured. He would lose part of one leg. Thereafter, as an adult, when he ventured into music production, it's quite common to hear his peers and contemporaries refer to him in interviews as 1 Foot Jimmy, his nickname that he was known as in music circles, maybe not the most sensitive of nicknames, but of its time and place, as Jimmy Radway, unfortunately, was part of a tragic incident in Jamaican history. Following his recovery from this life-altering injury, Jimmy Radway would focus on resuming his education, and by the early 1960s was studying the trade of upholstery under a dread named Stick due to his thin stature, and as such, in 1962, he was part of the renovation of a former nightclub known as The End, located at 13 Brentford Road in Kingston. The premises had been taken over by a sound system operator known as Clement Seymour or Coxon Dodd, who was converting it into a recording studio and rehearsal premises that would later be known as Studio One. And Dodd took a shine to young Jimmy Radway, allowed him to sit in on some of the very earliest sessions at Studio One, observing musicians like members of the Scatolites, Don Drummond, and Tommy McCook, who would later record for Jimmy Radway once he became a record producer. And this fired an interest in Jimmy to focus on music over upholstery work. Accordingly, he began to focus on writing songs and lyrics. He didn't think performing himself would be suitable due to his disability, and his talent for writing got him notice, and he was accepted into the Jamaican School of Art despite his poor background. There he would mix and mingle with students from all walks of life, expanding his horizons, and he began to sit in on informal music sessions held in the yards of Jonestown, Denham Town, brush up with artists like Alton Ellis and Ken Booth. Around 1968, Jimmy would make his first foray into record production in partnership with a man named Tony McKinley, who is associated with Prince Buster. Together, they recorded a singer named Teddy Chalmers doing a song called I Want It Girl at Whirl Studios. However, in his first taste of how the music business can go awry, Jimmy contacted a label in the UK to license the song overseas, only to get a letter and a receipt back saying they had already purchased and released it without his knowledge, and it had appeared as a Blue Cat 7-inch single in the UK in 1969. By 1972, Jimmy would make the decision to found his own record label, striking out on his own. He had met a man named C. Lloyd Gentles, who ran a lumber importing business near where he lived. Gentles was impressed by Jimmy's abilities and offered to set him up as manager of a woodworking business. However, Jimmy deferred, pointing to his determination to make it in music, and Gentles then invested £100 toward Jimmy founding his own record label, which Jimmy named For Me Time, or For Me Time. It's my time, in other words. Somewhat ironically, frustrated at being told that he wasn't ready yet, it wasn't his time, and inspired by some of the sponsored radio programs of the era, Bunny Lee Time, Treasure Isle Time, and so on, Jimmy said, "It's my time," with the name of his record label. For his very first release, he would dip back into his book of poems and lyrics. He came up with a song that he had written somewhat inspired by a real girl he had met in the Tivoli Gardens ghetto of Kingston, who was determined to maintain her dignity despite the crushing poverty all around her and the pressures it entailed. He wanted to get Dennis Brown to sing the song, but Dennis was tied up with work for Joe Gibbs and 90 The Observer. It would be months before he would be free to record for Jimmy. Instead, Jimmy turned to another fledgling singer, sometimes compared with Dennis Brown, named Errol Dunkley. Together, they would somewhat revise the lyrics. Dunkley said that it was more written in the form of a poem, needed a bit of adapting to translate into a song. The song was released as Black Cinderella and was an immediate smash hit that soared to the #1 position on the RJR and JBC radio station charts without, as Jimmy pointed out, as a point of pride, a cent of payola changing hands, a common practice at the time. The success of Black Cinderella would help establish Errol Dunkley as a successful singer, and would be quickly followed by more versions utilizing that same rhythm track. Jimmy Radway, like Glenn Brown, something of a rhythm master who would reversion his tracks as a cost-saving measure, but always doing so with quality, whether it be an original vocal version, an instrumental, a DJ cut, and finally a dub version. For the next cuts of that rhythm, Radway would bring in an up-and-coming DJ he had noticed on the Tippertone sound system named Big Youth. Radway was very nearly the first one to bring Big Youth into a recording studio. Gregory Isaacs just beat him to the post. Gregory Isaacs and Errol Dunkley moving very closely together at this time. They had co-founded the African Museum label together. So Gregory Isaacs brought Big Youth into the studio first, recording Movie Man over Errol Dunkley's earlier recording of Movie Star. That was Big Youth's very first record. However, the best Big Youth, aka Black Cindy, over the Black Cinderella rhythm, next cut to Errol Dunkley's Black Cinderella, was only the DJ's second ever record, and it would be followed up by an instrumental version by a young Augustus Pablo called Cinderella in Black, and finally by the DJ Roy as the immortal Sound Education, which I first heard on the essential Don't Check Me for No Lightweight Stuff from Blood and Fire Records in the mid-1990s. Sound Education with its memorable spoken intro, Gun Too Hot for I, Education for I and I. Roy here bigging up a literacy program that was initiated by the ruling People's National Party of Jamaica, Prime Minister Michael Manley, and that spoken intro off the Jimmy Radway production of Sound Education would later be sampled in the 1990s by Dub Syndicate on their ITAL Breakfast album on the song Gun Too Hot.
You want gun I? No I. Gun too hot for I. Then what the man want then I? Education for I and I. That's what the brother say.
release of Errol Dunkley's Black Cinderella, hitting #1, establishing him as a record producer of note. Jimmy would focus on further productions, initially working at Dynamic Studio, where they were impressed by his abilities and got him to ghost produce some other tracks that would appear on different labels. Jimmy began to cultivate a reputation for quality. He was never prolific, always working with limited resources and taking advantage of the economic benefit of spinning his rhythm tracks that he'd invested time and money into different versions of vocal, instrumental, DJ, and finally dub to maximize his resources. But known as a hands-on producer involved in shaping the sound of his recordings and known for quality, for working with top caliber musicians such as Aston Family Man Barrett on bass from Bob Marley's Wailers, his brother Carlton on drums. Some sources also say Lloyd Tinleg Adams, heavily involved with playing drums on Jimmy Radway's productions, and a top-of-the-line horn section consisting of players like Tommy McCook, who he had first seen as a member of the Skatalites a decade before, Bobby Ellis, Vin Gordon, and others, giving quite a regal, majestic, and authoritative sound to Jimmy Radway's productions. He and Errol Dunkley had been supposed to do some further work together, but other than the moody, haunting, keep the pressure down, sympathizing with the lives of sufferers in the ghetto, and which gave its title to date, the only various artists compilation of Jimmy Radway productions, the essential Keep the Pressure Down, which includes many of the songs I'll be talking about here. First appeared many years after the fact in 2000. Replica for Me Time Records label there. However, after that, him and Errol Dunkley had a bit of a dispute, fell out with each other. Errol had been supposed to sing a song called Hell and Sorrow for Jimmy. Instead, Radway would bring in Hortense Ellis, sister of Alton Ellis, who did a very soulful vocal over that. And again, that would be treated to an instrumental version by Vin Gordon called Tina May. Vin Gordon had already done a version of Black Cinderella called Zion Youth. Next up, Jimmy Radway would begin to work with a up-and-coming singer who already had a bit of a reputation as troublesome to deal with, difficult to deal with, if you will. He had grown up rough in orphanages, had gone to the Alpha Boys School, was named Leroy Smart, yet despite some of the disparaging talk about him, Jimmy was convinced that since they were from a similar impoverished background, they could vibe together, do some work, and Jimmy once again dipped back into his lyric book to come up with their first release together, the only 7-inch I have on the For Me Time label, Leroy Smart with Mother Liza, done for Jimmy Radway, a song from the point of view of a young man confessing his love for a young woman to her mother, with the implication that she is not going to be pleased with the union. The song was another major hit, helped push Leroy Smart to a higher level of success, and again would be treated to further treatments on the rhythm track. Leroy would do some further hits for Jimmy Radway, including the more reflective Mirror Mirror, and another smash hit, which he did a couple of different versions of, one called Mr. Smart, and a later reworking called Happiness is My Desire, also done later on for producer Bunny Lee, I believe. in which the singer, never known for his shy and retiring nature, lets his ebullient and exuberant personality in full swing with some swagger on another major hit between him and Jimmy Radway.
Through the mirror of my eyes, I can see people crying, people dying, people need to be loved. People moving up and down through the busy streets downtown. Some are begging, some are buying, some are crying. Keep the pressure down. After I give you all my tenderness, look what you gave to me, baby. After you gain all my sympathy, look what you made for me. God of trouble and misery. Yeah.
Mother Liza. In my walls of blue, I can only see you. Mother Liza, I love your daughter. Mother Liza, I love your daughter. Please let her come and stay with me, for only she can set my heart trouble free. Mother Liza, I love your daughter. Hey, people, my name is Mr. Smart. Some of the girls are saying I am a man with a great heart. For everywhere I go, I gotta put on my show to let you all know I am Mr. Smart. I am Mr. Smart.
By now, Jimmy had moved on from Dynamic Studios, finding the deal there not to his satisfaction, and had begun recording at Randy's studio on 17 North Parade. He'd been working with a man called Derek Gurr Smith, who would sell the records for him. Smith, once he and Radway went their separate ways, would bring Roy Francis into the recording business and help co-found the celebrated Phase One Records label. Jimmy had also linked up with Pete Weston's Micron label. Micron was quite a progressive, forward-thinking organization aimed at financing, promoting, and distributing music by independent producers like Jimmy Radway. And he had set up a second label called Capricorn Rising, one of the releases on which would be a cornerstone of Jimmy Radway's catalog. The singer Desmond Young worked by day as an agricultural officer, but at night he was singing on the hotel circuit, and Jimmy happened to stop by the Sheraton Hotel in Kingston one evening and was blown away by Desmond Young's performance with the Caribs Band. So impressed was Jimmy that he brought the singer and the band down to the studio to record a brooding, prophetic song called Warning, one of the blazing roots anthems of the 1970s, included, of course, on that killer Keep the Pressure Down compilation of Jimmy Radway Productions, a Warning by Desmond Young. Desmond would later rename himself Desi Roots and recut the song for Dennis Brown's DEB label, I believe, but the original done for Jimmy Radway. And that song would be treated to some further blazing DJ versions, including Iroy returning with Double Warning. Now, this is a warning to the heathen and to the righteous. That song included again on the Blood and Fire compilation, Don't Check Me With No Lightweight Stuff, with a further song, not sure if it's actually a Jimmy Radway production, but it did appear on the For Me Time label, Sufferer's Song, an inspired reworking of Psalm 112, I believe, in which Iroy says, "The capitalist is I shepherd, I shall always want." Not sure if that's technically a Jimmy Radway production. However, Double Warning would also appear on Iroy's Truth and Rights LP from the mid-1970s, and that is on the Micron label, which Jimmy was associated with. Double Warning, the last song on that album by Iroy, and the song would be further DJ'd over by Big Youth in inspired style as Wolf in Sheep Clothing. There's two versions of the Big Youth DJ'd cut to Desmond Young's Warning, and that song would be included on Big Youth's Natty Cultural Dread, the brooding Wolf in Sheep's Clothing by Ja Youth.
To visit Earth for one day, the right wrongs manifesting themselves in man to stay. Man a kill man fi woman, Lord. Man a kill man fi dungeon. Man a kill man fi peace of land. Man a kill man fi nothing at all. I don't tell every man you got a dread in a Babylon.
Now this is the warning to the heathen and to the righteous. Cause you got to live and learn. A man you may burn, Lord. And I don't show every man, yeah. It's gonna be dread down here in a Babylon. And I might be show each and every one that it would be dread down here in Babylon.
The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. But fool and corrupt are they, for they know not neither do they understand, as I would say. Y'all walk in dark, while I and I sons of Rastafari in the way of light. Because they got no sense, so they deal in violence, they shall surely go in silence. Say you're gone, but already move, ya, and then you done it already. When I say you're gone, but already, and then you done it already. Got from the mark to the cemetery, move.
about 1975, now with a sufficient quantity of strong and familiar rhythm tracks to draw from, Pete Weston of Micron was urging Jimmy to put out a dub LP. Jimmy had not put out a full-length album to this point, and dub LPs were beginning to gain in popularity in the mid-1970s. Jimmy, for his part, a bit skeptical of such a project, did not have high hopes for it. However, he brought a sufficient quantity of tracks down to mixing engineer Errol Thompson, the genius behind the African dub series for Joe Gibbs, among other classic dub albums of the 1970s. Errol, aka E.T., mixed them reportedly in one day, eschewing any kind of studio gimmickry, instead turning in taut, tightly focused rhythmic deconstructions with the full potency of dub and the strength of the original rhythm tracks from Jimmy's For Me Time label brought to bear and exposed in a new form. The album was pressed in very limited quantities, apparently only about 300 copies. Unfortunately, the Micron label was beginning to falter. Resources were drying up. They did not have the economic ability to promote it to their full extent. Otherwise, it would probably take its place as one of the classic dub albums of the 1970s, a reputation it didn't begin to gain until many years later. It was reissued in the early 1980s in the UK under a different title. However, it would have to wait until 2008 when the UK-based Pressure Sounds label had the good sense to reissue it in its original form, Dub I, the only LP of Jimmy Radway Productions issued at the time of his initial run of recordings, but almost impossible to procure an original copy of it today. Reissued in 2008 by Pressure Sounds with the replica For Me Time Records label there. It might be the only photo I've ever seen of Jimmy Radway. And sporadically in print ever since, fully annotated. Pete Holdsworth of the Pressure Sounds label names this album as one of his all-time top 5 dub LPs, classic reworkings of the For Me Time catalog. However, Micron would shortly go bankrupt, close its doors, and this reversal apparently would have an adverse financial effect on Jimmy Radway as well. Never had much money coming to him from his recordings, and he would essentially retire from the music business, frustrated with many of the difficulties involved with trying to get ahead in music, the lack of remuneration for his works. Apart from some sporadic credits in the years afterward, he would essentially vanish from the scene, reportedly retire to the countryside, where, as far as I know, he's still with us, still living a quieter life, leaving only these 2 albums of vocals and instrumentals and DJ versions, and 1 essential dub album as a testimony to the brief yet glorious flourishing of Jimmy Radway and the For Me Time label. Thanks for watching, everybody. Cheers and take care.